Hey there, occult explorers. Welcome to another investigation into the mysteries hidden in cinema. Today, we're going to open a portal, not to Narnia, but to the deepest spiritual secrets that C.S. Lewis hid in this cinematic masterpiece. Do you really believe that Narnia is just a children's story about a talking lion? Do you really think that the famous wardrobe is just a magical passage invented to entertain children? Get ready to discover that you were completely wrong. The famous wardrobe represents a millennial Kabbalistic symbol used by secret societies for thousands of years to represent the passage between dimensions. And Aslan possesses characteristics that go far beyond traditional Christianity, referring to much older and more powerful esoteric traditions. What you're about to discover can completely change your vision of one of the most beloved sagas in world cinema. C.S. Lewis was not just a Christian writer. He was a profound connoisseur of ancient mysteries, hermetic traditions, and secret societies that have guarded occult knowledge for millennia. We're going to reveal the hidden alchemical symbols in the characters, the Gnostic references that few perceive, the true origin of Narnia's myths, and why Disney may have deliberately censored some of these deeper messages. But first, I need to tell you who C.S. Lewis really was. Lewis was not a simple literature professor at Oxford. He was part of a very select and secret group called the Inklings. This wasn't just a literary club where professors discussed books. The Inklings had secret meetings where they discussed occult philosophies, esoteric traditions, hermetic symbolism, and knowledge from the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, Greece, and Babylon. Together with J.R.R. Tolkien, Lewis deeply studied ancient mythologies, Gnostic texts that the church tried to suppress, and hermetic symbolism. Both were fascinated by the idea that eternal truths could be transmitted through apparently simple stories. There is a lost letter from Lewis where he mentions having visions during the writing of Narnia. He describes mystical experiences, lucid dreams where he received images and symbols that he later incorporated into his stories. Some researchers believe Lewis was channeling knowledge from very ancient mystical traditions. The most intriguing detail is that there is a specific symbol that Lewis secretly incorporated throughout the entire Narnia saga. The dimensional portal, the passage between worlds, the bridge between different realities. In the Kabbalistic tradition, there is a fundamental concept called the Sephiroth. Different dimensions of reality, different levels of consciousness. Lucy's wardrobe represents exactly that. A portal between the material world, which Kabbalists call Malkuth, and the spiritual world, which they call Kether. The wood of the wardrobe represents the Kabbalistic tree of life, the structure that connects all levels of reality. The fur coats symbolize the bodies we leave behind when we make the spiritual journey, the old identities we need to abandon to access higher realities. The eternal snow represents the spiritual winter of the uninitiated soul. Lewis describes that the wardrobe chooses who can cross through it. In Hermetic traditions, only those who are truly prepared, whose hearts are pure and whose intention is correct, can access the higher worlds. The wardrobe literally tests the children, sensing their intentions and perceiving the state of their souls. Interestingly, in recent film adaptations, some of these symbolic details were altered or completely omitted. The more mystical descriptions were simplified, and dialogues explaining the crossing process were cut or modified. But the wardrobe is just the beginning. When the children arrive in Narnia, they encounter the most powerful symbol of all, Aslan. Everyone knows that Aslan represents Jesus Christ, but few realize there are layers much older and deeper in this symbology. Aslan is a multidimensional solar symbol. In alchemy, the lion represents spiritual gold, not material gold, but inner gold, illuminated consciousness. Aslan's golden mane symbolizes the solar rays of spiritual illumination, the radiation of awakened consciousness. Aslan's sacrifice on the stone table is identical to the fundamental alchemical process called solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. The old must die so the new can be born. The stone table that cracks represents the rupture between material and spiritual worlds. The runes carved on the stone table in the movies are real Nordic symbols used in ancient shamanic traditions to represent death and rebirth. Lewis based himself on ancient Gnostic texts describing the cosmic Christ, a universal force that transcends any particular religious tradition. This explains why Aslan appears in different forms throughout the saga. In Prince Caspian, he grows as the character's faith strengthens. In the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, he appears as both lamb and eagle. In the last battle, he reveals he's known by other names in other worlds. But Aslan has an ancestral adversary. Jadis, the White Witch, represents specific forces from ancient occult traditions. In Gnostic mythology, there's a figure called Black Sophia, corrupted wisdom, knowledge used for selfish purposes, intelligence without love. Jadis possesses all these attributes: seductive beauty but cold, immense power over matter used only to dominate. Her ice wand symbolizes the crystallization of the soul in the material world. The eternal winter represents what Hindus call Kali Yuga, the age of spiritual darkness. Always winter, never Christmas means always matter, never spirit. Lewis revealed in personal letters that Jadis was inspired by his own visions of temptation, dreams where a beautiful figure tried to convince him that the spiritual world was illusion. Edmund's addiction to Turkish delight represents what alchemists called lower pleasures that trap the soul. It's the perfect metaphor for modern addictions. Social media, consumerism, anything that promises pleasure but delivers only dependency and emptiness. Each secondary character represents a stage of spiritual initiation. Mr. Tumnus, half man and half goat, symbolizes human duality, part animal, part divine. His flute represents the music of the spheres, occult knowledge transmitted through vibration. His cave full of books symbolizes the internal library of ancestral wisdom. The beavers build dams, representing Masonic symbols of spiritual construction, controlling the emotional waters. Father Christmas is not the commercial Santa but the Hierophant, the one who confers spiritual power. His gifts are initiatic tools, sword for will, bow for focus, potion for healing. The four children represent the four alchemical elements. Peter is fire, will, leadership. Susan is air, intellect, beauty. Edmund is earth, materiality, temptation. And Lucy is water, emotion, pure faith. When balanced, they can defeat any negative force. After analyzing all these symbols, what is Narnia's real message? Narnia is not a physical place but a state of consciousness. The war between Aslan and Jadis happens within each of us. Jadis's eternal winter is our dormant spiritual condition. Entering the wardrobe means beginning the spiritual journey. Finding magical creatures means awakening dormant inner capacities. Becoming king or queen means taking responsibility for our spiritual evolution. Lewis was transmitting the perennial philosophy, universal spiritual truths that appear in all traditions. In Hinduism, Maya versus Brahman. In Buddhism, samsara versus nirvana. In esoteric Christianity, world versus kingdom of heaven. All say the same thing. There's a higher dimension accessible through consciousness transformation. We live in our own age of Jadis. Extreme materialism, spiritual disconnection. Today's Turkish delights are social media, consumerism, infinite distractions. Like Narnia's children, we need to find our own wardrobe to higher consciousness dimensions. Lewis wrote Narnia in the 1940s, 50s, but his descriptions of Jadis's tyranny, control through fear, mass manipulation, artificial pleasures for submission, are frighteningly similar to current social control systems. Film adaptations systematically omit the strangest, most esoteric elements. Mystical descriptions were simplified, hermetic symbols neutralized, Aslan's speeches about other worlds modified. Hollywood avoids content that awakens deep spiritual questioning. It's safer to sell a conventional Christian fable than genuine hermetic initiation. Maybe Lewis knew this would happen, placing the deepest truths between the lines, hoping some would decipher the true codes. Narnia is not just entertainment. It's a detailed map for spiritual awakening. Lewis asks, do you have courage to cross your own wardrobe? To leave material comfort and venture into spiritual consciousness dimensions? To face your inner white witch and awaken to the king or queen you really are? Narnia exists, not in a distant world, but in the deepest dimension of your soul. And Aslan, the cosmic Christ, the universal force of love and wisdom, is eternally waiting to meet you there. If this analysis awakens something within you, leave your discoveries in the comments. What other wardrobes can you identify in your life? What other films hide similar messages? Activate notifications for our next investigations into cinema's mysteries. If you made it this far, you're part of the few ready to see beyond the veil. Until the next revelation, occult explorers.